So I had the 4:30 Mass yesterday, and I gave this homily, and I was really excited. And I think I was so excited, I just flew right through the whole thing at like 1,000,000 miles per hour, and I don't know if anyone understood anything. So I'm really excited about this. And so I'm going to try to contain the excitement a little bit, but not completely, because if it's contained completely, then it's not excitement. So we'll see how this goes, but that's just what's on my mind. And the map is, so if you were here at, last week I mentioned, if you weren't here, no worries, but for this month of August, we're in John chapter 6, and Jesus is teaching on the Eucharist, and I've decided to commit my preaching to teaching about the Mass during this time, because if we don't understand the Mass, then we're not going to understand the Eucharist very well. And I think the reality is that most of us don't really know why we come to Mass, and we don't really know what happens here. We come because we're supposed to, and that's that, and there's something good about it, and we receive something from it, but much more than that, we haven't been taught. So that's not our fault that we don't know why we do what we do here. We just haven't been taught. So we're trying to reach greater clarity there, which is why I've decided to spend these weeks teaching about the Mass in the homilies. And the one part of the Mass I'd like to focus on today, draw our attention to, just one part, is the offertory. So the offertory is that moment at the beginning of the liturgy of the Eucharist, right after the prayers of the faithful, when we all sit down again and we bring bread and wine up from the back of the church to the altar. So that's the moment in the Mass I'd like to focus on today. But first, so the rough map is a wrong definition of liturgy, the symbolism of the bread and wine, a quintessential Christian word, and then a practical application. So that's the map. The wrong definition of liturgy that we have to get out of the way before we jump into the offertory is this. When I was in grade school catechesis, I was told liturgy is the work of the people. Not true. The Catechism says the liturgy is the work of God for the people. So the liturgy is not our work. It's God's work. It's not my work. It's not yours. It's not anyone's. It's not the priest. It's certainly not the priest, because it's God's, and it's Jesus' work, the one priest. And so Jesus actually in the gospel today tells us, though the people ask Jesus rather, what can we do to accomplish the works of God? And the answer I would expect is, well, here's what you can do. Item 1, item 2, item 3, like a list of things to do. He doesn't do that. He tells them, believe in the one God sent. That is, believe in Jesus. So he doesn't tell them to work. He doesn't tell them to do something. He tells them, believe. And so that's our work, actually, to believe and to surrender. Implicit in believing is to surrender to God. And so in surrendering to God, it's as if we say to him, God, now it's time for you to work. And we have 6 days of the week when we work. But when we come to Sunday, that's our time to stop with our activities and to say to God, now it's your time. This is your hour now. And so please do something with our lives and change them. Because on our own, our efforts will only go so far. They're futile in a certain point. And so we surrender our lives to God, and we believe in him every time we come to Mass. And that surrender is symbolized in the offertory in particular. And so the bread and wine that we bring up, they're not just random symbols. Someone 2,000 years ago didn't just pick bread and wine because, but they're very intentional. Because bread and wine, they symbolize everything that we are and everything that we call our own, and all our accomplishments and work. And very practically, this takes a little bit of thinking, but bear with me for a moment. In a very concrete way through history, bread and wine represent human work. You need a baker to get bread, and you need a vineyard to get wine. You don't find them in nature. It's the product of human work. And so in bringing bread and wine, it's like we bring to God week after week the product of all that we have and are. It's everything that we have and own that we bring to the altar, almost like our dearest possession in a way. We labor for 6 days, and we bring the fruits of our work to God to transform them, because we need him. On our own, we're not sufficient. And parentheses, this is actually why we bring up a collection during this time of Mass as well. It's not just the reason we take up a collection in the offertory isn't because it's just a convenient moment for the usher just to like pull your leg or something to get you to be generous. No. The reason we take up the offertory is because the money symbolizes who we are and what we are. It's the fruit of our work. It's what we have and call our own. But God asks us to surrender that all back to Him because we've received it from Him in the first place. Everything that we have, our whole lives, is God's gift. If there's anything in your life that you're aware of that's not His gift, I would love to know, but I have yet to come across something like that in my own life or in anyone else's life. And so in that offertory procession, the bread and wine from the back, we give it back to God, all that we are. And so the gift bearers who bring the bread and wine up, they symbolize all of us, actually. And so they come with the bread and wine and they empty their hands. They empty their hands and they give the bread and wine to the priest and the servers and they bring it to the altar. And so that's us emptying our hands and surrendering everything to Jesus. We put what's in our hands into Jesus' hands because He can take care of us. And even the symbolism of the steps of the sanctuary, it's all intentional, every detail. At the beginning of Mass, we walked up into the sanctuary, and that's a sign of us coming to meet God. We're going up on high to heaven, actually. The liturgy is participating in the heavenly liturgy, so we're walking up on high to meet God. And in the offertory, the priest and the servers descend down again as if Jesus coming to meet us and to receive our petitions and our prayers. So it's all intentional, the up and down movement, even that. And so in that moment, we say to God, I give you everything I have and make it concrete in your life. All the good things, all the bad things, all the struggles, the needs, all the intentions. Every Mass, we place on the altar our family and friends who are dear to us but have lost their faith or are wayward, or we place on the altar our anxieties or the helpless situations in our lives, or we place on the altar those places where we feel stuck, where we don't know what to do, or even the Mass in a particular way is praying for the repose of the souls of the dead, those who have gone before us. And so every Mass we remember in the Eucharistic prayer, every single one, there's part of it where we remember the dead. And so we're offering them up too, that for the repose of their souls that they'll meet God. So very concrete. We surrender it all to God. And we say, God, do something. Because my own efforts and my own work are only going to go so far, and I do that for 6 days a week, and that will only take me so far. I need you to act and transform my life. So we come here in desperate need of God. If we don't come here in need of Him, He can't do very much. But we come here in need and surrender everything that we have. And I know from my own experience that it's exhausting to not surrender, actually. It's exhausting to hold on to control in our lives. It's exhausting to be driven hour to hour, week to week by our own labor and to work and to work and to work and to hold on. That's an exhausting way to live. So every time we come to Mass, we stop our work and we say, God, you know how to provide for me more than I know myself. And so we come to the altar and the foot of the cross because every Mass is coming back to the foot of the cross. That cross where Jesus dies so that you and I can live. And He dies so that whoever comes to Him will never hunger, and whoever believes in Him will never thirst. And He gives us that food that perishes. He doesn't give us the food that perishes. That's what we give ourselves. He gives us that food that endures for eternal life. But we can only receive that if we surrender to Him. And so I encourage you as we move into the liturgy of the Eucharist to name one thing, one person, one situation in your life very concretely and offer it to Jesus at this altar, to let go of it. And if it's tough to let go, that's okay, but to say to Jesus, Jesus, this is tough. I don't want to let go of this even, but can you please help me to do that? And to be specific, and then I promise you, with the certainty of our faith that if we offer our intentions to Jesus day after day and week after week at the Mass, that he will show up and that he will act and that he will transform our lives. Because the death of Jesus on the cross was a tragedy, but the Father transformed even that, and that became life. And if he can do that for his Son, he does the same for all of us at every single Mass. So we thank him for the precious gift that is the Eucharist and for this Mass, and ask him to transform our lives this day.